Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. James, today it might revolve around £50,000.
No. He's behind me as well.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. I thought for the second time this season, we're actually going to produce a Sky podcast that might be useful for people because we've got a proper player with us, James.
We do have a proper player with us. We've got a guest with us today. Let me introduce you to Andrew Ferguson, otherwise known as Fergi to the Fantasy Football Hub community at Fergi222 on Twitter. How are you, Andrew?
I am really, really good, James. It's great to finally kind of meet you in person, kind of, virtually, but finally great to have a chat with you. I've been a big fan of, of your work ever since the early days when you had your other name, which you had to change a few years ago, didn't you? And stuff. I've been a big fan for years and years of your stuff, and your stuff on, Sky over the last year or two has been superb as well, guys. Well done. Really, really good stuff.
Proper Planet FPL listener there, so do you remember?
Yeah. I was about to say that sentence started so well that you were really looking forward to, and I thought you were going to finish with recording a podcast with two people that are just amazing FPL players as opposed to your Sunday regular. But do you want to let the listeners know a little bit about what you do in terms of Sky Fantasy Football and your hub show as well?
Sure, yeah. So I work for a fantasy football hub, do a kind of FPL pod, but around Sky, we do a Sky stream at 9:00 every Sunday evening. Myself, Paul McNulty, who's played the game for years and years, exceptional player, finished 4th years ago, and Dan Cox, who actually won it. I think it was 2017 as well. Again, these guys have played it for years and years, and I've learned so much off these guys over the years. So I kind of, I made an excuse to be able to chat with these guys every week. And I thought, if I make a podcast and, and get them on and work out all the tech and everything, I can, I can steal all their ideas and stuff. So yeah, we do that every Sunday at 9:00. And since the kind of game has gone a bit quiet, the last kind of half hour of the show has descended into a bit of chaos as we start talking about all different stuff, but it's really good fun. So if you want to join in, live stream every Sunday at 9:00, we generally chat Sky for an hour or so, and then we have 20 minutes of bollocks as the end, as we now call it. But yeah, it's all good fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I listened to your stream from Sunday last night, and you finished it with saying, more bollocks next week, baby.
Exactly that.
We like that, mate. We're well into that. How many fantasy games are you playing at the moment?
So I played 4. I played 4 for years. So I have played Fan Tracks this year, which is a different kind of strand. But yeah, I played FPL, for about 8 seasons. Played Sky for 7 or 8 seasons as well. I've played Telegraph and Dream Team for about 22 or 23 years. But even when I was in school, we used to make up our own games. I remember being there with our pens and paper and stuff, and just kind of making up rules and stuff, just kind of copying what was in the papers and things. So overall, been playing fantasy overall for a long time, and it's just my absolute passion and stuff, and to be able to come and work with the hub over the last year or two has just been, and it's been hard work, but I've been absolutely just loving it, and really enjoy being able to talk about it and kind of write about it on a daily basis and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of fantasy games. It's quite tough. This season in particular has been absolutely chaos, because if you think about the amount of times, not so much now, but a month or two ago, it was like there was an injury to Kane, or there was a fixture postponed or a fixture rearranged for the following week, wherever it was. Trying to think of how you manage that across all the various teams when each game has its own kind of nuances, rules, scoring, better scoring players. Like in Sky, you've got the centre mids and centre backs are kind of rewarded more. In FPL, they're not. In Dream Team, they're rewarded for something else. So yeah, it's been a tough old season, but again, one change of the world is just amazing.
How do you do that then, in terms of separate the mind? Because I know a lot of our listeners who've joined in this year play perhaps just FPL on Sky, and a lot kind of get put off with Sky because they're so head fixed into playing FPL for 10 years or whatever. I think, I can't manage the 2 games, and yet people often say, I want him to do well in this game this platform of game, but I don't want him to do well in this platform of game. I watch games and I don't know what I want. So with you playing 4 different platforms, how do you go into that if you've got Bruno Mass owned in Sky and you probably have him FPL perhaps similar and then maybe not the other 2 games? How is that for you when you watch a game?
Oh, in terms of watching a game, it's really, really tough because I've had a number of experiences this year with Kane, for example, in double game week 26. We just had, I captained him in Sky. I had him in Dream Team and I had him in Telegraph, but I didn't even own him in FPL. So, I was, and on top of that, I'm a Spurs fan as well. So it's like,
what are you doing?
I really don't know what I want. Right? So, I had this kind of theory with Kane in FPL that I didn't have him for that game for various reasons. I think that strikers generally in FPL are not as good as midfielders, but that's another kind of thing. But watching the game is tough, in terms of what you want. But I think in terms of making decisions amongst the various games, I've played them all kind of long enough that you kind of instantly know. You guys will know now in Sky this season compared to last season. You don't really have to think too much. You know the positions of the players, roughly how much they are in price, their attributes. So, if you were to move off, say Salah, for example, now got injured, you guys would automatically think, right, Salah's midfield in Sky, 12.5 million, these are my options. Whereas in Sky, you'd be thinking, right, Salah is 12 million in Sky, he's a striker, these are my options. So it's just kind of getting to know it almost like off by heart. Not every player, every price or whatever, but you just, because we're pretty like obsessed with it, right? I mean, all us guys, all the time we spend thinking about the game and playing the games and stuff, you just kind of know. But it's because it's our passion.
I remember at the start of the season, James was saying that the really in FPL and even in Sky, like the truth is we're picking from 50, 60 maybe players in our pool of what's in our thoughts and our wish list. So it's manageable to understand the players and the wish list that you want for sure. And you mentioned there a double game week for Spurs when you captain Harry Kane. It's an interesting segue, James, into, for once, the Premier League has been kind to us and given us the fixtures the day before a pod, not just literally 5 minutes after we've recorded one. So I think we're already winning, mate.
I was going to say, maybe kind. I was hoping it was going to be Southampton versus Palace rather than Tottenham versus Southampton, to be honest.
Yeah, do you know what? When we saw that double game week for Spurs, all I was thinking in my mind is, that's good. That's a Tottenham episode where James is going to be raging because he's had to put up with their shit twice in a week rather than once. So... let's see.
What I thought is that's going to ruin the next couple of weeks for me with the same repetitive questions 100 times over.
So Dara Davis.
You well know the answer to that, my friend, and I don't need to explain it to anybody.
Tell us what we know, James.
We got an update on fixtures yesterday afternoon, which was very handy before obviously having Andrew join us today. So we obviously knew the next 2 match weeks, match week 30 and match week 31. We now have all the information for match weeks 32 and 33. I think the headline from that is indeed match week 32. We do have 7 game days, as we suggested last week, so that might well happen. And it looks like for many of us, it's probably going to need coverage of 6. And basically, if you're captaining Kane twice, you need 6 captains that week. If you're not captaining him twice, you need 7. So as we said, there were one of 3 games could go on Friday the 16th, and that's now confirmed as Everton and Tottenham. The other 2 possibilities we said might go that night are the 2 games on the Saturday, which begins with Newcastle against West Ham and also has Wolves against Sheffield United. The Monday features the 2 teams remaining in the Europa League. Arsenal host Fulham and Manchester United host Burnley. We've now got a single game day of Leeds versus Liverpool. Tuesday, single game day, Chelsea versus Brighton. On the Wednesday, we have Tottenham versus Southampton at 6 o'clock and Aston Villa against Manchester City. And we also have single game day for Leicester, Thursday the 22nd at home to West Brom. And it's the first of 2 single game days for Leicester because they host Crystal Palace as well on Monday the 26th. Before that, we've got Arsenal versus Everton. There's also a single game day Friday the 23rd. And on Saturday the 24th, we have 3 fixtures, which features Liverpool, Chelsea, And on Sunday the 25th, we have another 3 fixtures. Obviously, in that weekend between Friday the 23rd and Monday the 26th, Tottenham and Manchester City meet each other in the Carabao Cup final, so have no league games. And Southampton and Fulham also don't play. However, there is a small possibility that Southampton Fulham might play in that weekend, and it is very, very small. The reason I say that is
when were they going to play originally? Sorry, mate.
With Southampton,
bringing it forward, are they?
Southampton and Fulham are due to play each other in match week 36. And we've spoken about the idea that match week 36 might become the weekend of the FA Cup final, with match week 37 moving to the midweek afterwards. So if Southampton beat Leicester in the FA Cup semi-final, their fixture against Fulham in match week 36 would need to be rearranged. That would be quite short notice, but let's not pretend we haven't had short-term notice on rearrangements this season. So Southampton Fulham, I mean, it could pop in on a 6 o'clock kickoff, Monday the 26th, for example, and they'd still have over a week's notice. So I wouldn't rule it out as they're definitely blanking, but it's very unlikely. The 2 other fixtures that need to be arranged that we don't know about yet, which are now obviously Southampton versus Palace and Aston Villa versus Everton, they will go into, we would think, the final available midweek, which currently would be between Tuesday the 18th and Thursday the 20th of May. But if those match weeks of 36, 37 get moved, it could be in between match weeks 35 and 36.
There's a decent rundown there on what's happening. So has it changed your thoughts, James and Fergie, on players in, players out? James, you're down to 5 transfers, is that right?
Oh, easy. 8.
8. Okay, sorry, 8.
And
Fergie, so 5. So that's 5 less than
well,
me. That's what I was thinking. 8 as well. I'm sitting on 13. So I need to really now maneuver between this period and try and make the most of it before we get into the final stretch.
Do you want to cover that first, Andrew, in terms of
I think
change of thoughts?
I think the only real the change of thoughts is I wasn't planning immediately on jumping on Leicester players, but there's a really nice hop on point in there now, Thursday, the 22nd of April, where they have the single game day against West Brom, which also coincides with a really nice run of fixtures for them. They've got 3 home games in 4, I think, and they're stunning fixtures there. So I wasn't massively planning on looking at Leicester, but obviously that has forced my hand a bit there. I think the single game day, I think it's Monday the 19th, is that Liverpool and Leeds now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was holding on to Salah anyway, as I spoke on Sunday night, because I think with a player like Salah and a team like Liverpool, they only need to flick a switch, right? As we saw Man City in January, and they just go from being, you don't want them, to completely and utterly essential, especially considering they play Newcastle on Saturday the 24th next as well. So I think those who are having an hour about Salah, I think it's definitely worth holding on to him now, at least till Saturday the 24th. After that, they've got United then, but they may, those 2 fixtures for me, Leeds and Newcastle, are possibly the best 2 offensive fixtures you could have all season, and and he may play his way into form there, and with Jota back as well, it may give him that kind of shot in the arm. So I think other than that, I enjoyed your pod last week, and you gave me the idea for Wolves coverage, the keeper as well in Patricio. So I was on Martinez.
We did not give you the idea, Andrew. Shut up, mate.
No, you did, honestly.
Take the credit, James.
Was it last week or the week before? Was it last week's one?
Last week.
It's been every week for about the last 5 weeks, I think.
No, this, but like, this is why I like listening to different pods and stuff, is because you just, even if you get just one idea or one gem or just something you haven't thought of yourself, I think that makes it all kind of, worth listening to. And that's why I listen to pods, it's just to get that little gem that gives you an idea, and that's definitely a good idea, because I've got Martinez, and Villa's fixture. Like, Martinez has been amazing, right? But if you look at Villa's fixtures until the end of the season compared to, well, especially like in the medium term, I think there's was there another Wolves captaincy requirement apart from the Wolves?
Fulham Friday night, isn't
Friday
there?
night. Friday night. And you might consider the Sheffield United home game on Saturday the 17th as possibly the best captaincy pick that day as well.
Exactly, and that's the other one. And you also get the extra fixture of the West Ham before on Monday the 5th. And
they're going to lose that. They concede about 4 in that.
No. And the fixtures after that, they got Burnley, West Brom and Brighton after that. You couldn't ask again, for a better run of defensive fixtures. So, I think that's a good move. But other than that, I think it's been fairly kind, actually, because at the moment, the only fixture I'm really stuck on to the end of the month is Friday the 23rd of April, which is Arsenal and Everton, which I haven't got any coverage from those. And I know people are a bit nervous about Arsenal players, because you never know who's going to start. We are going to know before that, obviously, whether they get through in the Europa League, which may have an impact if they get knocked out against Slavia Prague, who already beaten Leicester and Rangers, right? They're no mugs at all. If they get knocked out, the lineups become a bit more predictable and stuff. But I'm tempted by Lacazette. I think I mentioned this on Sunday's pod, like 0% owned, and the guys kind of laughed a little bit. But we get a lot of questions around, what punts can I take to try and win my mini league, right? There's no obvious captaincy shout there for Arsenal Everton. There's no one really obvious. Right? I know that the Calvert-Lewin is quite highly owned, but I think that's an opportunity. If you are 100 points behind, that's a kind of game where I just think you can take a punt, because I know it, like that's a very sort of common question. Where do you take the risk? Where do you take the risks? I wouldn't take a risk on opposing Kane or Bruno or Salah, but that is a chance. I'm not saying kind of go for Lacazette, right? But you can go for Saka, you can go for Odegaard, you can, I think they're the kind of fixtures you can afford to take a risk anyway. What do you think, James, about the second half of the month?
It's interesting the way it's fallen for me. The fixtures, there's nothing in those 2 new weeks that has surprised me in terms of the layout, other than, to be honest, we was anticipating probably Southampton versus Palace rather than playing Tottenham. I mean, in terms of Sky coverage, it doesn't particularly matter because the majority of us have obviously got Harry Kane at the moment. It's interesting the way it's fallen for me, because there are now 6 new single game days, and I have coverage for 4 of them. The 2 that I don't are the Leicester games, which, I mean, it's almost unavoidable. We're all going to, if we don't have one, we're all buying one when they play West Brom on Thursday the 22nd. And as Paul said on your show on Sunday, could be 2. I'm looking at game, maybe even 3, actually. The one I'd probably stand out, which I don't think you guys covered so much on the weekend, was Maddison. He's really interesting at 8.8 million in midfield, and obviously because he's been injured, he's got no ownership at the moment. So that's probably the one that stands out. Fofana's so cheap. Sinshu, I know you guys spoke about with the passing tiers and stuff. Just a little bit concerned in terms of maybe they change system, but even still, we'll get to see the team and stuff anyway. So we'll know perhaps that even if Harvey Barnes is back, for example. Whether Iheanacho or Vardy is the safer play. Obviously, Iheanacho is a great price. But again, because of concerns of perhaps Barnes and Maddison returning, once you go into this player versus West Brom, you want at least the Palace game the Monday after, and then the Southampton-Newcastle games. You want at least the 4 games out of it.
Completely.
But what's interesting for me about the other single game days, obviously Tottenham, Everton, I've got Harry Kane and stuff. But the 3 other single game days I have coverage for, but I probably have coverage for the underdog in all 3 fixtures. So I have Rafinha versus Liverpool, I have Lewis Dunk versus Chelsea, and I have Calvert-Lewin versus Arsenal. And the immediate instinct of it is, right, so I can dive back into Chelsea this weekend if I want to. The Liverpool on the Monday the 19th, it's obvious. And there are entry routes for Arsenal as well, Sunday the 11th, Sunday the 18th, before the Everton game, if you want to take the risk. Before you'd obviously see the team against Everton. And Arsenal have great fixtures till the end of the season, right? Newcastle, West Brom, Chelsea, Palace and Brighton are Arsenal's 5 fixtures that we can't see currently. But it's the search for differentials to do something different. And I just wonder, I've got players sitting there with a little bit of coverage. What if Brighton did go to Chelsea and win 1-0, for example? What if Rafinha does turn it on against the Liverpool team that can't defend? And asking myself, do I already have half decent coverage in these games? So I know, for example, the majority of people, as Paul correctly highlighted on Sunday, you look at Lewis Dunk and you think, yeah, do you know what? I've got no real need for him anymore. But I wonder, by the time it comes round, that Chelsea fixture, we'll know what's happening with some of the remaining fixtures. And I'm even looking at Saturday 24th, which you've got Brighton at Sheffield United, West Ham playing Chelsea, and Liverpool playing Newcastle. If I don't buy Liverpool or Chelsea players, and I don't have a West Ham player currently, the only coverage I've got that day is Lewis Dunk. And so I start wondering, in terms of differential, because we're all thinking the same moves. It's a little bit like that with Patricio. Even if you hadn't listened to us last week or you guys hadn't discussed it on Sunday, you would get to Monday the 5th as a Martinez owner and look at Wolves going, well, I could captain him today, if I don't have, say, a Calvert-Lewin or something as an alternative, captain him against Fulham. They've got at least another 4 brilliant fixtures afterwards, of which at least the Sheffield United fixture on Saturday the 17th, as you said, so which is possibly another captaincy. It's blindingly obvious. And the other things I've just mentioned, like, okay, buying a Chelsea defensive player, as Andrew said, holding on to Salah, for example. I started thinking perhaps the differential here is to do nothing.
So, could well be. I was going to say, I don't have coverage of some of these game days as well, but for me now, Chelsea, going to Chelsea against West Brom for the 3 games, which gives me 2 captaincy coverage, West Brom and Brighton, is straightforward. And that Chelsea player can then jump off and go straight to the Leicester player that then gives me 2 captaincy coverages for West Brom and Crystal Palace. So that's 2 transfers I'm already going to burn. I definitely know I'm going to be going to Patricio for the West Ham game. So that's my 3rd transfer. And I need to figure out an entry point into the Arsenal team as well. But for me, what you're suggesting there, James, of the differential being around of Rafinha or Dunk, I don't know. It doesn't make me think,
no, I get it.
It's a real punt. It feels a little bit too risky.
No, of course. Yeah. I'll be, if that's the way I decide to go for these sort of things, I'm obviously going to be swinging against the crowd. It's fairly obvious that Chelsea defender against Brighton or Salah against Leeds are going to be the guys that are captained the most. But what if it does go the other way and I'm already sitting there with the right player? That's the only thing I want to think about. Because don't forget as well, if I go Dunk to a Chelsea player, which is a possible idea on Saturday, it's also got to cost me the transfer. I spoke to you last week about the idea that I think it might be 2 transfers, because as much as it looks brilliant for them in the immediate, I think there's possibly no need for it in May, and you might be going on and then coming back off. And then that's straight away. It's putting me on 6. Could Chelsea and Brighton on Tuesday the 20th be 0-0, for example? I think, it possibly could. Brighton, as we've seen many times this season, play well against the better opposition. So, okay, it could be that none of them pick up passing tiers in that particular game, for example, because Brighton with hold the ball well. So it could be that it's 7 points each for an Azpilicueta and a Lewis Dunk. And what if it is only 7 points? Is that what I'm forcing it in? Because I look at Saturday and go, well, I'm quite happy with Rafinha against Sheffield United. And then when they play Palace on Saturday the 10th for Chelsea, I've got the Man City team and I've still got 3 assets and they've got Leeds. And I'd earmark that now and go, right, Azpilicueta at Palace, you'd think, blinding, clean sheet. But if I've still got Gundogan against Leeds and he starts, I quite like that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an argument for overthinking it when it comes to single game days and captaincies? Because the way I think about these things, I'm looking at the next 3 fixtures we're talking about, right? So you talk about holding on to Dunk for the Chelsea game, in which he may or may not get a clean sheet. I think the maximum you can probably hope from him is probably the 7 points, and that is unlikely because Chelsea are probably likely to score, right? But before those games, they've got United and Everton, who you would probably imagine as well. He's unlikely to get much more. They may get a clean sheet in one of them. I think he's probably likely to get the passing in both as well. In that time, if you bring Aspie in, he's got West Brom at home with a captaincy, nailed for passing if nothing else, very likely get a clean sheet. They also play Palace as well, where, again, he's probably much more likely to get a 9-pointer or a 10-pointer, 5 is a minimum again, right? So I have this argument in FPL, and it's just one of my big things. Instead, I think in FPL that people focus so much on one game or one game week that they tend to forget a bigger picture of it, in terms of like a run of games. Because if you think of the likelihood, right, and this is what we do in fantasy, right? We try to predict what is going to happen. the likely points of Aspie, if you think he's going to play in in those games against West Brom, Palace, and Brighton, it's probably fairly likely he's going to get between 30. If you include him with the captaincy for West Brom and Brighton, it's fairly likely he's going to get between 35 and 50 points. It's probably fair to say when you go 20, 20, and 10 as kind of maximum. If he misses out on a clean sheet or two. With Dunk for Brighton in that whole period, if you think the maximum he's going to get out of the Chelsea game is 7, that's 14, and he probably likely, he may get 4, 8, or 10 points. So for that period of the 3 games, you're kind of comparing, a kind of mean or an average there of Dunk hopefully getting 15 or 20 points, whereas Aspie could get 50 in that whole period. That's where I like to think about, fantasy a lot. It's not just the individual game or the individual game week, because it's impossible to predict what is going to happen in those things, but it's more about these runs of games. And this is why I'm really excited, because I think it's the first time in the season where we see these massive fixture swings for teams that have all got quite low ownership as well. You think about Leicester, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, even Wolves, right? Not many of these teams or players have got ownership, and I do think both in FPL, Sky, and everything, it's a massive opportunity for people to really kind of shift around, and Serge, with you with 13, you can afford to be a bit more luxurious in your transfers than myself and James. You can afford to think. But yeah, I suppose I'm interested, in your thoughts there on kind of, rather than focusing wholly on making sure that got captain for the game week, these actual run of games for me probably more important.
I mean, thinking about games in blocks is far too common sense and logical for me, mate. So, what you described there is how you should play properly, and so over the top of mine.
I'd look at it on. I think Aspie is probably the first choice for most people if you don't own Chelsea now. And I'm not saying that I won't see the team against West Brom on Saturday, see him in it, and not buy him. But I think part of the point is, if I get him Saturday, I'll captain him against West Brom. I think rather than Rafinha, I get that. It's probably the best way to go. But apart from buying him for that Brighton game as well. And the Brighton game's 3 days after an FA Cup semi-final against Manchester City, which is not inconceivable that it goes to extra time, for example. Yeah. So then could I be removing Dunk to Azpilicueta, who may not even play in that game? And I think what might be key for me is it might be that I wait. And it might be that when the Fulham fixture, which I presume is going to be Saturday, May the 1st, if they announce them before they know if Chelsea have gone through or not in Europe. It might be that there's still some great 3-1s from the Brighton fixture, which will get Brighton, West Ham and Fulham. And it might be then that I might be better off waiting for that. So I really haven't decided yet. Yes, I think Azpilicueta would be the way to go. Have you already got Andrew, or are you looking to buy?
No. So I'm doing Dunk to Aspie on Saturday. That's that, and it was the Chelsea. It was one of the Chelsea captaincy days. I can't remember. I think a bit kind of late to the party on Aspie. This kind of wait and see.
Agreed.
The wait and see mentality. But he's 35% owned. I expect him to go up to 50 or 60 on Saturday. But I think I got a question, James, for you, because I'm interested in some of the comments you've made over the last few weeks. About trying to.
Yeah,
no.
Here we go.
Which show is this?
Just about like trying to kind of win the whole game. And do you think you're trying to go different to be different's sake, or do you genuinely think, completely objectively, that Dunk plan as an example, and everything else you've got in mind is the right play?
I think I'd go to what Dan would say on your show, right? Like Dan doesn't think at the moment he can probably win it. We're in not too dissimilar a position at the moment. Dan's obviously got the experience of the run-in to try and do it, which obviously I don't. But as Dan said, like, does he think he can win it? No. Yeah. Is he going to try? Yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think have a go. The only thing I'm a little bit cautious of, I'm in quite a few mini leagues this year, which I wasn't in last year. Yeah. And I'm in a good position for the cash.
Yeah.
So there is a balancing act between that. What am I more bothered about is, could it be that there's 300-400 quid potentially waiting for me if I finish the season well in the mini leagues, or do I try and piss it up the wall to try and get the bigger pot pulled, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't decided yet. The one thing I wanted to ask you, Andrew, is I'd say on Aspie on Saturday, if he's not in the team, say the back three is, well, in fact, let's say, what if it's a back four and it's like Reece James, Alonso, Christensen and Zuma? What do you do?
I would I'd very likely leave it, because the only reason I'm really interested in Aspie is because he's such a, he looks to be completely nailed. When I look at a transfer in, I try and look for someone who's is completely nailed, and they're really good on bonus, right? Especially in defence. And Aspie is kind of all of those things. With players like Ruda, with Silva back, we saw a thing this week, didn't we, where the manager said, he thinks Christensen and Silva can play as a pair and all this sort of stuff. I think Mendy and Aspie are the only ones I would say are probably nailed. Anything after that, I'm not convinced. I think Rudiger is maybe as close as can be, but if he isn't playing, because I've got a Rafinha as well, I'll just put it on Rafinha and I'll just leave it. I'm not going to force a play, because I don't need to. If it was a single captaincy day, like I had when, I don't know, I think you guys were on holding, weren't you? But remember Arsenal played on that Thursday night, and
had Leno.
you had Leno, sorry, and Tierney wasn't in the team. Well, that just absolutely broke me, because I planned out so carefully, intricately that the next few weeks, and so you had 1 hour to be because the whole strategy, because in terms of price and everything, just absolutely killed me, and I ended up going for Lacazette. And if I'd have had another half an hour, I would have probably gone for Holding. But it was just that, that whole panic thing of
decision paralysis.
It's interesting you mention that, because I did have the same thing, because my intention was to buy Gabriel, because we thought he was going to be back for that game. So similarly, and I didn't want to buy Holding because I had enough doubt that Gabriel could still come back for the Newcastle game and take his place, and that's why I ended up defaulting on Leno. It's interesting, just quickly, on kind of looking at Arsenal, Chelsea, Wolves as real kind of swings here.
Yeah.
Most of us would want to buy Patricio, Leno, Mendy. The safest way to go.
The safest way in,
the safest way to go. So I'm obviously on the Patricio route, but I know a lot of people, like we spoke about, obviously selling Martinez earlier. There might be others who would maybe wait a little bit and go for Leno, perhaps when Arsenal play Sheffield United on Sunday the 11th.
Yeah, and you can't,
a bit more breathing space.
It's hard to argue with that, because I think the reason why I and a lot of others are more interested in Patricio is that kind of short-term captaincy thing. But if you look at their final 3 fixtures, they're not very nice, and you're going to be stuck with it. You're not going to want to waste another transfer at the end of the season. I can't think of who they've got. I know they've got Spurs and another couple of other games at the end. They're not the best, but Mendy and Leno, like Mendy or Leno, is actually probably maybe a better longer term option, but we all get sucked into the kind of what's in front of us, which I can understand as well, because how many times have you planned to move 6 weeks down the line, and at that time everything's changed. Let's just look at Zuma at Chelsea, for example, or the form has changed. Liverpool players, City, like no one had City players apart from maybe Diaz at the start of January, and a week later, everyone had 6 players. Things change so quickly. So
it's funny with Chelsea. I'm trying to find a way to go with an attacking player, because, like I said, with the additional transfers that I have, I really am tempted to go with Mason Mount if I know he's going to play. Or to be fair, he's the only attacking player that I really want to go to. But I feel like everybody's going to go defensive. I've got the luxury of transfers. I could even use 2.
I'd double up, Serge, if
cover
the
defensive, and then get an attacking one, whack the armband on him and see what happens. Maybe even Werner. So at some point, that guy's got to come good, So I'm thinking more of, where do I go attacking with Chelsea rather than going defensively with Chelsea?
I think you can afford to, you get an Aspie, you cover it off. I personally like Havertz. I mentioned him on Sunday. It's a bit, it's a bit of a punt. There's nothing stats based about it or anything like that. But the manager's come out and said, number 9 is his spot. It does look like in the majority of games that Werner, Havertz, and Ziyech are probably that, you're the front 3. I haven't been kind of over impressed or over enamored by him, but as a as a captaincy punt, if he kicks off at 0.5% ownership, if he gets a goal and assist or man of the match or a couple of goals, laughing. But that again, similar to Lacazette, and we were kind of joking about this on Sunday night, right? They are complete punts. But I also think that you can play yourself into a position like yourself now, where you can afford to go for a punt, and if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world either by doubling up, right? So you could even go, I don't know, Aspie, Mendy, and Havertz, and captain Havertz, right? If Havertz is nothing, you've covered off an Aspie captaincy. If Havertz kicks off, you've got Aspie, you've got Mendy, and you've also got this, 30, 40 pointer from Havertz, which will kick you up there. I think in fantasy, a lot of it is about looking for those opportunities where if it doesn't happen, it doesn't really matter. But if it does happen, you're golden. And that's what I try and do. I look at the fixtures in all formats, is look for those opportunities. I was on FPL Wildcats last night, and looking ahead to these Liverpool games, because I'm wildcarding in 31, and I was talking about tripling up on Liverpool, Salah, Jota, and Trent or something, and they looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. And I was like, well, they got Leeds and Newcastle. If they do something against Leeds, everyone is going to buy him because he'll be the best captain shops in the following week for Newcastle. You've already got him, right? So you can again look ahead, and you've got the points in the bag already. I think that's the important thing. I think Luke, you had on a few weeks ago, it was kind of a really big advocate of this as well. Is taking a risk sometimes to try and get ahead on a player who no one else is looking at. And sorry, I'm rambling on now, but
no, great, mate.
Like you mentioned earlier, we're trying to predict the future, right? And being the one that gets on it earlier definitely can have some upside. I think I own Jota. I don't even know what Jota's ownership is in Sky. I need to have a look, but I think
check. I finally realised he is actually a forward at 9.1
million.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to go against Salah and have Jota as my captain in that Liverpool Leeds game, for example.
Well, that's it. That might be it for me in terms of we're talking about taking a punt and going for a risk. My risk might be that I don't buy any Chelsea, that I don't buy any Liverpool. That might be my risk that then perhaps allows me to go treble Leicester, as I possibly said, when they play West Brom on that Thursday, thinking, well, I've got the coverage from other people anyway. Ironically, it would probably mean selling Duncan, not having that captaincy against Sheffield United, possibly.
I just think your rank exposure there, James, is massive, in it. It's either going to fly you up or fly you down. It depends kind of how you feel about that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's as much money won for being 50th as there is for 500th, so you may as well.
There is, but again, I've seen an interesting. There's been a thing on on Twitter this week, around overall rank and is it important or whatever else. It's kind of what your own goals are as well, right? As you mentioned, James, I was going to ask you this actually around like mini leagues and stuff, because in Sky it's quite hard to find a few mini leagues that a lot of the pros are not in as well, because everyone just seems to enter everything, right? But if you are in mini leagues, it's a few £100. I mean, winning the game is a once in a lifetime achievement, right? And but the vast majority of players in games like Sky and Dream Team and things like this, it's not about even FPL, right? You never really have an ambition of winning it. It's all about it's winning your mini leagues, right?
No, in Sky, the ambition is to win it, finish first.
It's an amazing ambition to have, but it's a once in a lifetime thing, right? So
no, don't say that to Dan, because I don't think he's
going to
be happy as a once in a lifetime,
that's fair.
He's shot his load, then he's done. Yeah, fantastic. Should we have a look at captaincies for the upcoming week? There's only 3 game days.
Yeah, we've just said none of us know what we're doing.
Well, Chelsea will be the one for me. I think we've all got the fallback of Manchester City, should we decide that we don't want to go with the Chelsea asset against Leicester. But if I end up with a Werner or Mason Mount, I'm going to go attacking with Chelsea for the Saturday. What about you guys?
Azpilicueta is the best shout. If I buy him, then it will be him. But my general feeling at the moment is that I probably won't. Therefore, I'll be on Rafinha on Saturday. Just want to highlight something Andrew said about obviously when Luke come on. I can't remember what the fixture was, but we were talking about not captaining Salah. Don't misunderstand I might be going with Dunk as advice. I'm just telling you what I might be doing. What we said then was we were both saying we probably weren't going to go and get Salah, but the advice to everybody else was the safest thing here to do is get Salah. And I think that's what applies here for Chelsea. The safest thing for most people to do who don't own is to go and buy one on Saturday.
I think that was when Liverpool were at home to Fulham. Is that right? Because Tottenham had Palace the same day, so you could have just gone with Harry Kane.
It might have been, yeah. It might have been.
Yeah. So Saturday for you, Fergie? You thinking Azpi?
Asby, I think, boring, but I'm quite, I'm happy with my rank on top of a few mini leagues. I've got no aspirations of winning it because I see all the names, including yourself, James, like ahead of me and stuff, and so I'm just happy to coast along and take a risk when I can instead of trying to.
We've just found out that
force it.
The Tuesday when Chelsea play Brighton is probably when you're going to get me. Tuesday the 20th.
Yeah, that's when I catch you up. Yeah.
Nice. On the Sunday, is anybody looking past? Well, we've got Manchester United obviously have the home tie against Brighton, so Bruno Fernandes's ownership is going to be high. But that away game for Spurs against Newcastle, James, Harry Kane, a tempter for you or not really?
I'm going Lewis Dunk, can I? Obviously. No, my plan is to go Harry Kane on Sunday. Yeah. That's the plan at the moment. I mean, whichever one you don't go with, you want the other one to blank, basically, between Kane and Bruno, because their effective ownership will both be well over 100%. I imagine it will be quite split. Looking at some of the polls that have been knocking around for FPL this week, suggests that probably more people will go with Kane than Bruno. I get that feeling for Sky as well. It's a close call.
Definitely on Kane. Yeah, no, I think he's best option.
Yeah, well. I think I'm going to go with Kane. And on the Monday night, obviously West Ham are away at Wolves and Everton have Crystal Palace at home. James, what coverage do you have and who are you thinking of going with?
We've got Patricio, and I welcome everybody else who's likely to possibly join me on Monday. But I'll be going Dominic Calvert-Lewin Monday.
Fergie?
Yes, I have Calvert-Lewin, and I'll be captaining him. I think it's a good fixture, but I will likely. I think the problem is we don't see the Wolves lineup, do we, before the because the Everton game's first. So those
our game's 8:15.
Yeah, you're kind of gambling really on bringing in.
Antonio's not been doing too much naughty with his missus during the international break.
Has he gone off to Jamaica?
Did he go and play for Jamaica in this break?
I'm not sure. Someone was asking me how they thought he'd react to the travel. Wasn't that a question on one of the pods a while ago?
Oh, mate. Well, to be honest, the game's not till Monday, so that shouldn't be an issue. It's more with Antonio. Is he fit this week?
Yeah. I think I might gamble on Antonio. I own Lingard and Antonio, and I'll be buying Patricio, but I think I might gamble on Antonio. The last few weeks, I mean, the number of times he's hit the post or been so close to hauling, it's been ridiculous. I do think at some point he's going to get a couple of goals in the game, and this could be it Monday night, bank holiday Monday. So I'm going to gamble on Antonio on Monday night.
I think I think we need the pressers on Wolves and the keeper, right? Because a lot of people will be bringing in Patricio for the following Friday, right? But if he has indeed got an injury, and you bring him in for the Monday without seeing the lineups, you're then hoping if he doesn't play that he's actually fit for the Friday. So I would, I'll be keeping a big eye on the on the press on Friday.
The good news about that, Andrew, with Wolves is Nuno Santo is never one who says we've got some issues.
Just a few issues.
No, you're right. You're right.
So, he really does. You would think with the goalkeeper there would be clarification. Is he okay? Is he not? The suggestion I've seen going around over the last week or so is that he genuinely shouldn't have any problems. Cool. He didn't play for Portugal because he was playing following the protocol following the concussion. It obviously was a heavy bang. But the suggestion I've heard is that he should absolutely be fine. I don't think there's any way. Well, I say there isn't any way. I don't think by the time that Monday the 5th comes around, we won't know one way or the other.
Yeah, no,
if he's likely to be available or not. Yeah. Just something I want to highlight on Calvert-Lewin before we do some cues, Serge. Yeah. Obviously, there's 4 remaining match weeks, 4.5 for some, that we can't see, obviously, TV fixtures and what's likely to happen with them. Obviously, match week 38 we do, because we're all going to kick off at the same time. Match weeks 34 to 37 we can't see. One of the things I was looking at last night was looking at problem fixtures. And I think this is a really good idea for people to do before they buy or sell players over the weekend, is look at those 4 match weeks, 34 to 37. Obviously include the 2 rearranged fixtures we don't know about, Villa versus Everton, Southampton versus Palace. And look at problem fixtures. If they become a Monday, what am I going to do, for example? And there's a couple of teams who stand out who have what I would describe as problem fixtures. Everton are one of the ones that really stand out from that perspective for me. They have Villa to play twice. They also have West Ham, Sheffield United, and obviously if you don't go down a Wolves route, that's the 5th fixture. So for some people who don't have any coverage of Everton, Villa, West Ham, Wolves, for example, that's 5 problem fixtures coming for Everton. And one of the things I'm therefore conscious of doing is actually possibly holding, I know most people don't, but possibly holding Calvert-Lewin, because I see some problem fixtures there. The other team that really stands out from a problem fixture perspective is West Ham. Burnley, Everton, Brighton, West Brom are the 4 fixtures between 34 and 37. Now, obviously, if I hold Calvert-Lewin, that gives me coverage for Everton. And if I hold Dunk, it gives me coverage for Brighton. But I wouldn't have coverage for Burnley and West Brom fixtures for West Ham, should I need them. So I'm looking at an entry point of West Ham, possibly Sunday the 11th, which might not be the ideal time because they play Leicester that day. But then looking at Leicester, possibly captaincy coverage for Saturday the 17th and hold through. The one I want is the popular one, obviously Antonio. But A, I don't want to go down that route because it's already popular. And B, I don't have to bastard or stay fit all the way through.
That's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is with West Ham, there are alternatives. Like, if you're just doing it for the coverage, the likes of Soufal is so cheap in this game, 6 point something, isn't he? So you could just go down that route and leave him as a set and forget as a cheapie. I've got Stuart Dallas still lingering in my squad, so if I had that problem, a sideways move is there. And if you're really feeling excited, go for Jesse Lingard. There are alternatives, I would say, in the West Ham squad to Antonio if you need to.
The other name I just want to mention is obviously Vestergaard, who will still be hanging about in a few teams. The Southampton are almost definitely going to have, in my opinion, a single game day in that period. Be it if the Fulham game's rearranged, or more likely the Crystal Palace game could be 18th, 19th, 20th of May, for example. Now, that's a long way off, but right at the death, if that's the way it works, having a captaincy for that could be a bit of a differential. And their actual final run, Southampton, of Fulham, Leeds, Palace, West Ham, is not the worst run at the end. And they've got a couple of good fixtures now as well, if people want to hold on to them. So Vestergaard's another one. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I know that if I sell him, that Palace fixture will haunt me. And it's a balancing act, kind of what Andrew said. Do I hold this player knowing that all the way in the future, that's probably going to cause me a problem? Or I've got the affordability to bin him off for pretty much any Leicester player the day after Southampton play Tottenham. These are the sort of things I haven't decided yet. The only transfer I think I'm clear in my mind at the moment is Aubameyang. I'm going to go and get him. He wasn't even in the players you mentioned from Arsenal, Andrew. And that's why I love that. 8% owned in the top 1,000. My entry point's likely to be Sunday 11th when they play Sheffield United.
I think he's like a brilliant risk. It's just, do you believe the narrative, I suppose, around, are they going to just save the Europa? I don't think they'll play the second leg, will they, of the Slavia Prague game yet at that point.
No, they won't.
What do you think about that? Because like Lacazette has started, I think it's 3 out of the last 4. And if they get through, they're basically going to be playing every 4 days, right? For the rest of the season until, as long as they kind of stay in the competition. Does that concern you at all with Aubameyang?
I think we said this last week. There's going to be a week where if I go and buy him, I'm going to captain him and he's not going to play. It's going to be a 0-pointer. But I'm absolutely convinced there's a couple of hauls in there as well. Beyond the fixtures we can see, Newcastle, West Brom and Palace and Brighton on the final day still to go. And Aubameyang is capable in hauling these sort of games. In terms of the rotation risk, he's not going to play every Premier League game left. I think that's fairly obvious. The Fulham game, Sunday the 18th, you get the team. If you want to look at the entry point there. And what's interesting about that is that could be a real differential day to go against Bruno, against Burnley, for example. And go in for the Arsenal player there. I want to go for him because I just think most people going, I can't. He's fucked it off all season. And I know Adam Pritchard, who obviously doesn't play Sky, but it's our Arsenal correspondent. He's going to be on our podcast tomorrow, and I'll ask him again. But he said to us a few weeks ago, he said, Aubameyang will play the majority of the games because he's Aubameyang. Yeah. And that's his feeling on it, that, okay, look, Sunday, Thursdays, etc. And I think the benefit of it is it's Sunday, then Thursday. If you think of it that way, rather than Thursday, then Sunday. After the Thursday game, you can make a judgment for the Sunday. Am I safe captain him today if he's going to play the Sunday? And I just think there's some great games in there. where he's going to be a big differential captain. And I guess that's what I'm trying to find. I don't think many are going to swing with that with Aubameyang. The fact that you mentioned 4 Arsenal players, you didn't even mention him, I think speaks volumes. No, I like that you didn't mention him.
No, I think he's a brilliant option. It's just that, and
this, I don't, by the way. I'm not recommending anyone else gets him.
But he's the kind of player.
Fuck it up for me.
No, you don't mention about Salah, right? Man City, like Aubameyang and Arsenal weren't that good to at the end of last season, but he had that Norwich game, right? I don't remember that where he score 2 and have an assist or something, and he flew. It was like a 40 to 50 pointer. He's capable, as you said.
Watford final day as well last season.
Yeah, he's capable in these. He's a bit of a flat track sort of a bully, and he can put these teams. The ones you've mentioned. You got like Leeds. Sorry, the Arsenal fixtures. Newcastle, West Brom, and and stuff. You can put them to the sword, right? So no, I think I didn't mention him just because I think I'd mentioned Lacazette and Saka and stuff, but Aubameyang's a really good option, and I think he's the kind of player I meant earlier, where if you have him and he bangs, absolutely brilliant. If it doesn't, it doesn't really matter because there's no massively obvious alternative, is there? Yeah, there's no alternative in those kind of things apart from the Bruno one you mentioned, really. But yeah,
if I go down that route, what's interesting about it is if I buy Aubameyang on Sunday 11th, I think barring injuries, I probably stay with Kane, Aubameyang, Calvert-Lewin, possibly right to the end, unless there's something that opens up with those final midweek fixtures or something. But then Everton are likely to be in it, so I can't see me selling a Calvert-Lewin if I get that far with him. And then that obviously rules me out of people like Salah, Vardy, Iheanacho, some other really interesting options. So it probably means that I'll end up playing around defensively quite a lot. And I don't think that's the right strategy. I think I should be powering into the players who are capable of getting holes. But I think if I buy Aubameyang, I can't see where I sell Aubameyang, Calvert-Lewin or Kane particularly. Perhaps I could come off Calvert-Lewin after they play Arsenal Friday the 23rd.
Not that excited about holds on to Calvert-Lewin. He's not like a massive hauler, is he? All right, he might get you a goal or maybe a bit of bonus and stuff, but he's not going to give you a hat trick, is he?
Well, no, but by that point, by obviously Friday 23rd, if I want to come off him the next day, then I'll know. I'll have the majority of the information about the problem fixtures that I mentioned. Villa twice, West Ham, Sheffield United, Wolves. If they're going to be problem fixtures, then I'll probably hang on and stick. If they're not problem fixtures, then I think probably after the Arsenal game on the 23rd, then I can bin him off over that weekend.
Depends on your rank as well at the time. We're talking now, obviously you're talking with your rank in mind now and and how you're going to play. This is nearly a month away now. You could be you could be in the top 10 or you could be 500 or 600 and thinking, fuck it, I'm going to go for, whatever. But it's always great to have, a rough plan in place that you can refine as you go along, can't you? So
I'm hoping he gets sent off against Brighton on Monday the 12th because I don't want him to play against Tottenham on Friday the 16th. You know where my loyalties really lie, Andrew.
Do you know what? As sad as it sounds, and I'm happy to admit it, I really kind of envy you and admire you in the way that, you're Spurs, right? Spurs is everything to you. And then the fantasy kind of sits underneath. Over the years, the fantasy element for me is actually overtaking it for Spurs, and I can see you like Jesus Christ, but I'm happy to admit it in terms of it's hard watching games when you want someone to score against your team, and then you're still thinking, but if they score, maybe Spurs can.
I really don't ever want any player to score against my team. It doesn't exist.
It's a difference with us,
If nothing else, though, Fergie, you'll probably live a bit longer than James will because you have had to go through the stress that he has to deal with supporting Spurs.
Remind me.
Not all a bad thing.
Remind me never to get Andrew a seat next to me at Tottenham.
For sure.
Well, I'm like, oh shit, no. I had it for about like 35 years. I went through all the, Jason Dazal years and all that stuff and all the pain, just the pain of everything. That Man City Spurs. The cup game where they lost 4-3, and was it John Macken scored the winner. Spurs were.
Andrew, what are you doing here, mate?
Spurs were because it's the epitome of being a Spurs fan. Spurs are 3-0 up at half time. Their best player goes off injured, and Nicholas Anelka at half time, and Joey Barton gets sent off at half time. and you are thinking absolute easy streets, and we go and lose 4-2.
Yeah, but you remember the VAR goal, right? Karma, my friend, karma.
Yes, oh, you're right. Yeah, definitely.
I had to wait 15 years to get my own back. Don't worry, City will get their own back on us in about 4 weeks, I should imagine, at Wembley.
I'm sure they will. I think we have a bit of a spanking there, yeah.
Have we got time for any cues, Suj?
Yeah, we've got time to do Twitter questions. I'm sure people have been kind enough to send them in. We will deliver. Quite a few of these are player-specific focus, so shouldn't take too long to rattle through. I think people now have their heads back in the game rather than maybe a little bit more around strategy. Start with Steve Wright at Steve SkyFF. Has your opinion changed on Patricio now fixtures are out? Is Leno or even Mendy a viable option instead?
I think that one's for Andrew because I'm stuck.
Yeah, I just think
he's got a choice.
With Azpilicueta's ownership and stuff, it doesn't make sense to go to necessarily Mendy instead. But I do think Leno, if you want to cover off Arsenal and don't have Arsenal coverage, is one to look at.
Yeah, I think if you haven't got Adebayo or whatever else for the captaincy on the Friday the 9th, I think that Wolves are probably their next 6 fixtures if you include West Ham a decent. It's maybe a bit medium term thinking rather than kind of long term, but mine hasn't really changed there.
Yeah, I think with Patricio, just don't look at the individual single game days like you mentioned, and look at it as a block. Yeah, and as definitely. A block of 6 fixtures, definitely he's a better option for me.
I think, it depends when we get the kind of the start of the May TV fixtures, but I can actually see some people ending up going Patricio Monday on the 5th, getting the 3 Wolves games, possibly captaining him twice, maybe even 3 times. And then on Sunday the 18th, going to Leno before the Fulham Everton. If, say, the Newcastle West Brom fixtures for Arsenal open up to be perhaps, they could have Monday fixtures. We know that they probably wouldn't be scheduled for a Friday fixture because of obviously the announcement probably being before we know if they're in or out of Europe, but it could be arranged for a Monday quite easily.
That's like a really good point, because obviously all the way through I've been talking, I suppose, from my perspective, I've just having the 8 transfers left. I don't want to use 2 of my remaining 8 on a keeper, but for those who have got more left, I think as you say, that's a really good opportunity there to maybe get some really quick, heavy points and then move on some for the rest of the season.
It depends the way it falls, right? Because Wolves 3 fixtures, while Arsenal play Everton, Newcastle, West Brom, Wolves 3 fixtures are Burnley, West Brom, Brighton. Yeah. Even argue that Wolves' 3 is possibly better. So it probably is dependent at that point. Where does it fall? And obviously, if it still falls nice for Wolves, you're probably then looking ahead of Friday 23rd, Arsenal, Everton, going, oh shit, I've got no coverage. And then looking at alternatives to go into probably the Fulham game on the 18th.
There's a number of questions here around Leicester City as well. A lot of people have picked up on the Single Game Day and the run of fixtures they have as well. Starting with SkyFF Tay, he says, do you think Fofana is a nailed starter at 6.1 million? He could be an absolute steal for their run-in. And Steve Cheek also talks about, do you have double or treble on Leicester in mind? 2 games where Man City and Tottenham have no games, and then bring Kane or Diaz back in afterwards.
For me, as mentioned, I think Maddison's the one that I've most got in mind at the moment. It's obviously subject to him coming back from injury. I think what's interesting about Fofana is obviously 6.1. I think in different season, you probably correct me if I'm wrong here, Andrew, but with this coming up with sort of the West Brom Palace fixture, then maybe even another one with Southampton, Newcastle afterwards as possible single game days. I think in years gone by, we'd have looked at Fofana being in that West Brom team and that'd be auto buy at 6.1 million. Yeah. But nobody really needs to drop the money.
No,
there's so many people that could just make the case to go, is Siyuncu a better buy at 8.3? Is Ricardo Pereira, if he's fit, is obviously a don at this game at 9.2. Yeah. And I think a little bit like what happened with Siyuncu last year, a lot of us went down a route you couldn't. I think Siyuncu was the same price. Was he 6.1 or 6.2?
He was roughly
It was worth the saving. But I don't know if any of us really need to. As I said to you last week, so I've got 5 million sitting in the bank at the moment, and my plan for the next 4 weeks, I'm not spending it.
Yeah.
Over the years, like you've had like Van Dijk, Laporte, you've had these players who've been 10 point something, right, and they've sucked up so much budget. But this year, even if you end up like I've got Salah, Kane, Bruno, I think, I'm going to ask me, I can afford that. Unless you end up with a front 3, maybe, as you mentioned, of Salah, Kane, Aubameyang, and you've got Bruno and De Bruyne, then you're looking at the 6 mils, right? But, I don't think you're going to have all them. So I don't think the budget this season is as important, unless, and we say this all the time. I know you guys are big kind of advocates of this as well. And Paul is, it's how he plays it, right? So he will plot his team out for, how he wants to go move by move. He will make the transfers in his team and not confirm them. So as he's working his way through his team, he knows how much budget he's got left. So, if you're bringing Aspie and Patricio this week, he will do those on his team, then work out how much he's got left to bring in for, for Farner or Maddison or whoever it is, and by doing it that way, you always make sure you're not caught short, which is really important. So, but yeah, I don't think that the budget is a massive issue. In terms of Leicester, we mentioned Iheanacho, but I do share your concerns of when, Maddison and Barnes are back. I still think Vardy's got part to play. I love players on penalties, because as Kane proved last week, you don't have to play well to score a penalty, and they just always got that in their locker. It just nails the captaincy for you. So but all these players, right? I don't think there's a best option. You've got Fofana, you've got Maddison, you could have Barnes, Iheanacho, Vardy, even Schmeichel, right? And they're all good options.
It's another one, isn't it? Iheanacho versus Vardy. Do you need to save the money? You probably don't. I mean, take me saying I'll possibly keep, say, Kane, Calvert-Lewin, and maybe buying Aubameyang. After Tottenham play Southampton Wednesday the 21st, there's obviously 2 Leicester fixtures before Tottenham play again. And who knows, that might turn into a 3-0, a 4-1, which obviously with effective captaincy becomes 6-1s and stuff like that. So it might be Thursday the 22nd. I think it'd be a popular one. Harry Kane to Jamie Vardy.
I always hate choosing a player that I'll be concerned in the future. The way you look at the team sheet, you're not sure he's going to be on there. If Vardy's fit, he plays 100%. I think with someone like, Iheanacho, when you check the team sheet, if he's on there, you're like, phew, which is not the way I like to play. I like to, you're 99% sure that player's playing, because, you're not choosing for a week or 2 weeks. You're choosing for, the almost the kind of remainder of the season in Leicester's case. So I bear that in mind as well.
I've just had a quick flick through the questions, and one caught my eye that is messing with my head now. And I can't concentrate on the...
Is it about your Welsh accent, Serge?
No, we're going to get to that in a minute, because I want to know how your Jamaican is.
Is that in the bollocks section that we do at the end?
No, this is in the bollocks section. We're already going to the bollocks section. From Tom Hartnell, #SkyFF. Tom SkyFF. Do the Planet FPL crew fancy coming to at Paul McNulty once stag do? I love a stag do.
It's not a stag do though. This is the thing. Have you?
I'm waiting for the invite. I haven't fucking.
Well, what it is, yet. Right? So Dan, he's not allowed out by his wife, right? So
there's a surprise.
We planned
during lockdown or just in general.
Just in general. I don't think he's left Norwich. But, no. I
thought he lived in England, didn't he, Dan?
No, Norwich.
Oh, okay, fair
Norwich,
play.
Yeah. No, we're talking about, just having a meetup, in the summer if guidance allows and all this stuff. And, I'm very much, I really enjoy going to all the socials and stuff. And Paul, he makes the effort to fly down from Scotland and things. But Dan, he's not allowed out. So he had to, he's actually gone as far as printing out T-shirts with Paul Stag on the side and on the back, so he can show his wife and say, "Look, I'm going on Paul Stag." So it's Paul Stag. It's not his stag. It's just a bit of meetup, and of course you and everyone else are obviously more than welcome. We haven't organised anything yet, obviously, because we don't know what the guidance is going to be. But as soon as we do it, everyone's welcome. We're just all meet up, get pissed and chat some bollocks.
It's a fair shout. I had a few mates that were getting married later in life, and you just can't do a stag do when you're 40 versus doing it when you're 25 or 30. It's just not the same. So I want to just get their stag do's done, even if they're not getting married, so that I don't have to end up going on a stag do when I'm 45. Love a stag do. James, you in?
Depends if I'm going to Tottenham or
not. Priorities.
It's a straight back answer, isn't it? Can I go to Tottenham? No. Okay, I'm coming.
Tom's got a sensible question as well. What are your thoughts on Salah? Should we stick or not?
It's a stick if you've got, isn't it? I mean, and if you don't, obviously there's the entry point of the Leeds game on Monday the 19th now seems really obvious with, as Andrew said, the Newcastle fixture afterwards, Saturday 24th. You could even make a strong case to go bang, 2 fixtures, captain, on to the next possibly. So if I had, I would hold. I would not be selling Mo Salah if I had him at the moment. I'd be holding.
If you've had him this long, I think it would be.
There's that as well.
I think it'd be a crime to drop him ahead of these two fixtures, right? I've held him all the way through, but I just look at that end fixture and I just think Liverpool are a class team. It could be a flick of a switch. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right? But like I've managed to hold rank and gain rank, holding Salah all the way through. So that's what I mean about looking for opportunities, right? So I've held him and he hasn't. If he had banged, I would have gone up massively in rank. Yeah. I think by coming off him now, I just don't think it's worth it, personally.
A couple more questions and we can wrap up the pod. We've got a few. One coming in. Well, Ian, Aaron, as always, he sneaks in a couple of questions. Let's get to Ian. Is using transfers purely to rotate explosive heavy hitters for captaincy a valid tactic for improving rank? And he specifically says April the 11th, Salah, Aubameyang for a virtual 5 or 6 for 2, and then Aubameyang to anyone else. So, James, you're not the only one who's buying Aubameyang, it seems.
Well, no, I think that's kind of a little bit like what I said about if it opens up that Kane to Vardy, you might be looking at, if you want to captain Vardy 4 times, like an 8 versus 1 or something, Vardy over Kane. It depends how it opens up, which we'll know by the time we get to the Leicester West Brom fixture, I'm sure. Yes, ideally, but then if you're thinking it, it's a little bit like what I said, everyone else is thinking it as well. There's no one who's not thinking shit about Patricio or Leno. We're not telling anybody things here that they think, I hadn't seen that. So do you want to follow the herd? Because if that does open up Vardy to Kane, let's say effective 7 or 8 to 1 over Kane, everyone else making a move. And then it's just a case, does everyone go back to Harry Kane afterwards or not?
Ian also asks each of us to pick a player who we think will be the top point scorer between now and the end of the season.
In each position?
No, just one player, top point scorer between now and the end of the season. Anyone in your mind, Fergie?
It's obvious, isn't it?
I don't know. I like Liverpool, Arsenal, Leicester. I'm a fixtures person, right? So I very much kind of jump on the fixtures for who I think have got the best wins. I'm going to go a bit outlandish. I'm going to say Vardy.
Wow. Yeah, it's not a bad shout, James, for you.
Kane.
Yeah, I was going to say Kane for me. I think I'm going to stick with Harry Kane. Yeah, and you've got the extra fixture in there as well compared to some teams.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it's something we don't see at the moment, like an Edison.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And the last question of the show comes from our friend Paul, Sky player in FPL. He says, how much impact does working in such close proximity with other top contributors have on your own ideas and thought process? I'll let you know when I do, Paul. Ouch, that was aimed at James. Given the number of fans, this is specifically for you.
I mean, if you'd not stitched it up, it might have been funny.
Yeah, given this is specifically for you, Fergie. Given the number of fantasy formats you're involved with, it must be extra difficult to forge your own path and not get swept up in the group think.
Yeah, it is, and I'm really fortunate, if you think of the people I work with, obviously with Dan, Paul, Ian, and Liam, all people like that on, on Sky and FPL, people like, Adam Hopcroft
and
Matthew
stuff,
Jones, Rich Clark, FPL General, you got the, real.
And even Will himself is a
Will is just
well.
incredible at all games. So I think last year for me was the hardest one. So last year was the time I spent work, it was my first year working with the hub, and there's a trick, and I'm sure you guys have kind of noticed it now and kind of made your way through it, right? But it's cutting through the noise and looking where the value is, and it's what I kind of mentioned earlier, getting that, where do you want the insight from, right? Because stats are so like readily available now. I do feel like there's a lot of content providers could just use stats, right? And say, over the last 6 weeks, X, Y, and Z. So this means over the next 6 weeks, the exact same thing is going to happen. And I'm the complete opposite. If you look at like Salah and Mane, right? If Salah goes and scores, for 6 weeks on the bounce, then I don't expect him to score the next 6 weeks on the bounce. I expect Mane to score the next 6 weeks, for example. So I think it's looking for the opinions who you actually value, and not going down those stupid rabbit holes of things which people just want to have, because they're bored, they just make up something.
Do you know what I think with that, Fergie, is quite often when people put tweets out with particular stats, you can always tell where they're coming from. Like, people put stats out to prove a point of view that they already have. They already have made up their mind that this person is a good differential, or that's the way to go, and they'll use the stats to back up an opinion that they want to push.
Last 7 game weeks.
Exactly. Rather than
last 11. I saw that once. Last 11 game weeks. Why?
Yeah. Rather than approaching it from here's a blanket comparison with A and B or something, then you go make your own mind. People share information with a preconceived opinion, and that's sometimes where I take it with a pinch of salt and think, maybe not.
And I also think there's a thing, right? Because I think then they've always got the fallback, right? If it doesn't happen, they will say, well, that's what the stats said. I think I think if your balls on the block, right? I've just called out bloody Havertz and Lacazette, right? If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because I'm not going to put them in and just chuck my whole season away on those.
Because no one else is buying them. Right? That's why it doesn't matter.
Well, it doesn't matter, right? But if they do bang, I'll get massive variety. It's all about like looking at those, find those opportunities that can't really hurt you, but kind of a massive upside. And and to answer the question, I think it's cutting through all that noise. Like last year, I finished about 6K in Sky, which is like my worst finish ever. I finished 500K in FPL, which is my worst finish ever. I had an absolute nightmare. I look back, it's easy to kind of make excuses, right, and to do this. And there's no real excuses other than the fact that I think my mind was just overcrowded with so much information. You just end up going with almost what everyone else is doing, but doing it a week too late as well, because you're a bit behind. Whereas, I made a really conscious effort this year to cut the noise down to the people whose opinion I really, really value, and kind of look at it all and make a decision which I think is the best. Could be right, could be wrong. Look at Lacazette I did earlier. It was wrong, right? I brought in Gundogan in game week 16 or 17 in FPL, got way ahead of the curve on Gundogan. So some of them work and some of them don't. But, you've got to have your own thoughts and ideas and identity on it, and just do what you think is right. That's what it's all about. What's the point in just doing what the same as everyone else is doing, unless it's the right thing to do? And this is the thing, right? So, but
a lot of the time it is.
Look at Kane, game week 32 captaincy. He will more or less probably have 180, 190%, EO, right? But that's for a reason, because he's the best option. But I think where you think they're not the best option, that's the time to strike. Not just do it because you want to be different, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered that.
No, you have really well. I do agree. Be careful whose advice you take, but then know the trusted sources. And I would say that you and the boys at Sky for the Hub Show 3 for 1 on Sunday evenings are voices that we trust, which is why I want to say thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate it.
I was going to say, don't tune into them at 9 o'clock on Sunday night. It's too much fucking noise.
No, the last half an hour. Tune in for the last half an hour. The bollocks is probably worth it.
The last half an hour where we talk about our favourite crisps and all that sort of stuff.
It is 9 o'clock, isn't it, Andrew? You go live.
It's 9 o'clock.
Saying that,
yeah, live at 9.
I never get to catch it live. It's a shit time for me personally. But I do nearly always watch it back. It's a great show. Give our regards to Paul and Dan when you see him. Mr. Ian Parrin, if you speak to him as well. I want to give a shout out to Frank from FF Stuff as well. Yes, we did a Patreon Sky pod last Friday, and me and Frank have been DMing quite a lot since that, and Frank's looking to improve certain statistics that are models available on his site, and they're going to look amazing. It's kind of drilling into positions and points versus certain opposition and stuff. He's working on it. I'm not saying it's available now or anything, but he's working on it, and it's going to make readily available statistics for everyone much better. Give Will a shout out when you see him as well, Andrew. Love that fella. Top bloke. Yeah.
Just to say, just on FF Stuff, I talked about earlier about like cutting down the noise and trusted sources. For me, Fantasy Football Hub and FF Stuff are the two tools which I don't use anything else because I don't have to. They're just for me the best tools. It's not only SkyFF stuff and kind of and the Hub, right? It's all FPL, even like Fan Team, Telegraph, Sun Dream Team, Sky. It's all on both these sites. They're absolutely awesome. So yeah, and thank you so much, guys, for having me on for this. It's been really good fun and good to meet you guys.
Pleasure, my man. Before you go, where are you in Dream Team?
Top at the moment in Dream Team. Ooh. And absolutely cacking my pants because there's a lot of money at stake. So yeah, I'm about.
What's the prize?
First prize is 75k, and
Nice.
second, then it goes kind of down to fifth. But the jump between first and second is 75 to 15, and then it goes down to like 5, 3, and 2. So I'm trying not to think about it. Just enjoying it, and but it's nervy times.
You ain't enjoying that
no,
at all.
I made the mistake of telling my wife what the prize money may be if I were to kind of win it, and now we've even had an argument about what colour our new kitchen's going to be. So I'm going to try and make sure to just kind of
forget that,
lock it all out, Christ. But
don't even tell my missus what I earn or nothing, mate. She doesn't know what's in the bank account at all. Fantastic. And we managed to get through the entire show without you doing an Indian accent or me doing my Welsh. Where do you live? I used to live in the Rhondda. I used to live in
whereabouts? Because I live in the Rhondda.
Tonnerevel.
Do you really?
I used to. My dad used to have a factory down there. That's why I know all right, boy, yo.
I live 1 mile from Tonnerevel.
Really?
I live across the
exactly
road in Williamstown. I was over there this morning actually. That's
I used to work down there and used to go. There used to be a hotel pub called the Black Horse. We used to go down there, and this is talking about 14 years ago now.
Yeah, no, I've lived up here for about 7 or 8 years. I'm from the island in Barry originally, the old
right.
Gavin and Stacey RI. That's why I've got quite a little bit of a mixed accent. But yeah, I've lived here 7 or 8 years now. But anyway, I wanted to test you, Serge, before you go, if that's okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this. After your efforts last week,
which was a great effort. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Yes, go on.
I'm not sure about that. I'm just gonna.
Okay.
Can I?
I love it. I should get.
I didn't even message. All right. I'm going to put something in the chat now, right? I'm going to put a place. So say it. This is a place in Wales. I'll give you a clue first, okay? So this is a place in Wales. It's got a famous train station, 58 characters long. I'll say it slowly for you first, so you can have a go. But you just want to have a go and do it. So you say it. Llanfair Pwth Gwyngyll go gerith Gwindrobwll Llantysilio go go go.
Llanferith Gwynedd go 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 Quantfwrdd.
Spot on, mate. Well done.
I'll have a go as well.
Go on.
Llaneffley.
Spot on. That's always a bit of a stinker when with the Welsh. It's all the ll, isn't it? The little.
Yeah, anyway. Fantastic.
Anyway,
love it. Well, if I head back across that way down to the Brecon Beacons, which I try and do at least a couple of times a year, love it down that way. I'm going to give you a shout because I know where to
give
find you.
Give you a knock, Serge, and we will we'll go and have a pint. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, if you win that 75 grand, you're buying.
James. I will be. I tell you what, if I win that, we'll have a meeting in the summer and I'll pay for it.
Nice. James, do you want to tell the listeners what we've got left for the rest of this week?
Yeah, Clash of Correspondence tomorrow with 3-5 FPL Loco Lord previewing Arsenal Liverpool at the weekend. Yes, we'll be asking Adam how much he thinks Aubameyang is going to play during the running. I'll be streaming on YouTube at 3 o'clock on Friday and also in the hour before the FPL deadline from 10 a.m. on Saturday morning as well. Thank you very much for your time, Andrew. Pleasure. Really enjoyed that, mate.
Awesome, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good stuff. If you want to find more Planet FPL content, Patreon's the place to find us. Patreon.com/Planet
tomorrow.
FPL. Yeah, new month tomorrow. I was going to suggest it. Sign up tomorrow if you want to support the show and get additional podcasts every day as well. But in the meantime, thanks again, Fergie. Stay safe wherever you are. Ciao for now.
Good luck, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.